just pulled up. My mouth, I'm still picking it up off the ground. It's so big.
Today we are at the SHEIN warehouse
where the products come directly from this facility to your home.
I went on a brand trip to China with SHEIN. I still can't believe it. To the hotel, I freshened up and then went to go have some lunch. Here is my cute little outfit, and again, I got to enjoy the view while eating.
So it's day 2 in Guangzhou with SHEIN, and today we got to visit one of SHEIN's leading factories where they produce the clothing. I'm not gonna lie, I really expected it to look like it does in the movies, like really dark and dingy, but I was really surprised to see each piece handled with care, and it was also nice to see our SHEIN designers there and so happy seeing their products being put into production.
Okay, we're finally talking about it. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello. If you're returning, welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking around. I really appreciate you. So today, we are finally talking about the SHEIN brand trip that happened a couple months ago. And I know this is kind of like cold tea, but I still wanted to talk about it because when it was happening at the time, we were moving and I was watching it all unfold with like kind of my jaw honestly on the floor at how absurd it was for many different reasons. And I knew I wanted to make a video on it like as soon as I could. And I also wanted to make a video on it because I have followed Danny DMC like for years and she was kind of like a key player in all of this. And so it was interesting to watch it all unfold as someone who has followed one of the influencers involved for a very long time. I think it's kind of an interesting case of like influencer responsibility, obviously, but like also how some brands tend to use influencers and their relationships with their following to like save face and improve their reputation. And also how all that can backfire. But I also wanted to use this situation as like a jumping off point for me to address my past with questionable sponsors, like SHEIN and Temu that I am still getting comments about because no, I like have not been ignoring you. I simply just like have not had the mental energy to address the comments until now. Because it was honestly like a very big learning experience for me. So yeah, let's just get into that now. In the past, like I said, I have done partnerships with brands like SHEIN and another with Temu. The SHEIN partnership received an appropriate amount of backlash at the time, and I responded via a community tab post around the time that I posted it, and since then I have privated that video. The Temu video also received an appropriate amount of backlash and criticism, and I have yet to address it all, and I'm doing that right now. It honestly like doesn't matter, but I just did kind of want to explain myself. I signed the Temu contract before the vast majority of the criticism of that brand like hit the internet. And I had also like received the product by then and all of that. And was it absolutely on me that I did not do enough research beforehand? Absolutely. Like I am not taking responsibility for that at all. And I will not lie to you, like without going into too much detail, finances for me at the time were not amazing. And I was kind of in like survival, do what you gotta do mode. But like I said, my reasonings like really don't matter. And I absolutely misused my platform by promoting yet another company with very questionable business practices. And I painted them in a light that they did not deserve to be painted in. I received a lot of comments and still kind of do receive a lot of comments for how long ago that video was. Some nice and some not so. That people were disappointed in me for accepting a partnership with and promoting a brand like Temu, and some people were unsubscribing, and to which I say I completely understand and I'm genuinely so sorry. I think it's honestly taken me a while to like come to grips with how big my platform is, and it's obviously like not the biggest on YouTube and it probably never will be, but at the time I think it was around like 35,000 40,000 people, and now we've hit 50,000, which is insane to me. And that is 50,000 like individual people that have come to my channel and decided to click subscribe because they trust me and my opinions. And I think the fact that like I still work in a full-time job outside of YouTube kind of blurred my personal responsibility as an influencer, because quite honestly, I don't see myself as such. Like I see myself as a very real and normal everyday person who has had to turn to places like SHEIN and Temu in the past for things that I needed to get, like solely out of financial like necessity. But since the Temu partnership in particular, I have realized that like there is a big difference between being like a normal, regular, schmegular, everyday person who is just choosing or having to buy from certain places in their personal life, and being a person who's like who's turning around and getting paid to promote these businesses and corporations to people who choose to watch their content because they trust them. And that may seem like very common sense to you all, but for me, it took a really long time to actually fully realize like why me promoting things like Shein and Temu was actually a big deal. Not to sound like a victim in this situation, because I absolutely am not, but and to also kind of like transition my thoughts like into what I'm going to be talking about in terms of the Shein influencer trip. I feel very dumb for like having let a brand like Temu use me and take advantage of me and my close relationship with my audience. And I truly believe that's also kind of what happened to influencers on this trip. But I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. I also think that all of it was like a severe lack of critical thinking skills and independent research on all of myself and the influencers on this trip, and also us unfairly using our platforms to promote shitty companies. Anyways, TLDR, I am so sorry for promoting companies like Shein and Temu on this platform. I really do take my reach and my content like very seriously, and it's something that I cherish, and I know I let you down with those. And I'm actually now starting to work with a manager that helps me find more reliable brands to work with, but I have also like learned my lesson and will still be doing my own independent research on the brands that they present to me, and that any brands that come into my own inbox in the future. I really appreciate those of you that stuck around through all that time, or those of you that subscribed regardless of the videos on my page, but I also appreciate and respect those of you who stuck to your own laurels and decided to unsubscribe and leave, and I understand how I disappointed you as a viewer. I knew I couldn't make this video without addressing that first, and I also really wanted to talk about it anyways, and so there's that. All I can say is that I've learned my lesson and I am doing better, or I'm going to do better for you guys. I pinky promise, like to the best of my ability, and yeah, so I just wanted to address that first here, because I still am getting comments about it. I'm probably gonna go private that Temu video now after I'm done filming this. But yes, so I just wanted to address that first, but now let's get into the mess. So for those of you that may not know, a couple of months ago, Shein flew a few influencers and like plus ones into a factory in China and basically showed them, but also had them create like North Korea levels of propaganda for them. I think it's also very important to mention before I get into any more of this, there was not a thin white influencer on that trip. And I'll get into why I think that's important in a little bit. But I want to show first some of their TikToks and Reels that they created for this trip here.
China trip has been one of the most life-changing trips of my life. Getting to see the whole process of Shein clothing from beginning to end with my own two eyes was so important for me. Kicking off the trip by heading to the factory of the leading manufacturer for Shein was the perfect way to start. I was really excited and impressed to see the working conditions. The next day, we headed to the Shein Innovation Center. This facility blew my mind. It's over 600,000 square feet. There's so much technology, and Shein is just such a developed and complex company, and it was so beautiful to see firsthand. I was able to interview a woman that worked in the fabric cutting department, and you guys know me, she's an investigative journalist, so I asked her all of our questions, and she answered them honestly and authentically. She was very surprised at all of the rumors that have been spread in the US. She told me about her family, her lifestyle, her commute, her hours. Our last stop was to the Shein warehouse. This place was massive. It's about 84 acres and almost fully run by technology and automation. I was really impressed by the extensive checklist that each item had to go through before it's shipped off. I think my biggest takeaway from this trip is to be an independent thinker, get the facts and see it with your own two eyes. There's a narrative fed to us in the US, and I'm one that always likes to be open-minded and seek the truth, so I'm grateful for that about myself, and I hope the same for you guys.
Drove 2 hours out of the city to the Shein Innovation Factory, where basically they produce the clothing samples to ship off to the warehouses to make. Upon interviewing the workers, a lot of them were really confused and taken back with the child labor questions and the lead in the clothing questions, because they basically said, our kids want to be on social media just like y'all. They're not working in factories, and our clothing grows through rigorous testing before production. When I ask them questions like, what does your work week look like? How many hours do you work? What's your commute? Most of them work like 8 to 6, and their commute is like 10 to 15 minutes, just like normal. I expected this facility to be so filled with people just slaving away, but I was actually pleasantly surprised that a lot of these things were robotic. And honestly, everybody was just working like normal, like chill, sitting down. They weren't even sweating. We were the ones sweating walking through the whole facility.
I got to tour one of SHEIN's factories, which was really interesting because I had never been in one before. I loved getting to learn about each step, as well as actually see the working conditions for myself. Like many others, I've heard a lot of misinformation, so I enjoyed getting to see it firsthand. Each worker had their own space, and it was cool to see that they use a lot of technology, which puts less work on the workers.
The manager, honestly, y'all, stood firm on stating there is no child labor involved and they do not support nor participate in it.
It was day 4 here in China with SHEIN, and we started off the day with dim sum for brunch. And just to say that I had that for brunch is crazy. Like, just being here, experiencing the culture, talking with the people, and really getting a feel for how China really is has been amazing. After that, we went to one of SHEIN's major warehouses where basically the products that you order online are stored here and shipped directly to your home. I really thought I was gonna see like thousands upon thousands of workers there, but honestly, I was pleasantly surprised that a lot of the workload was robotic. And you know what's crazy? While Brandon was taking over the position for the moment, the girl was telling me that they get a nap time after lunch. How crazy is that? So after our factory tour, it was time to head out to lunch, and we got to try some authentic food, y'all. It was so good and so nice trying different things. And even though sometimes that gets a little intimidating, we were pleasantly surprised that we loved a lot of the dishes. Brandon got so into it. He even got like a personal demonstration on how to use chopsticks, even though I've been teaching him for like the past 3 years. The city is just honestly so amazing. We even went to the mall and did some window shopping before heading back. We're gonna be digging a little bit deeper into SHEIN, and I want you guys to come back so you can find out more.
A big reason I got so intrigued by this drama was because the influencer Danny DMC was involved, and she was kind of the one getting the most flack and like backlash for going on this. And that was mainly due to her attitude towards the pushback that she was receiving.
Could never, will never be a sellout ever in life. I was not paid for any trip or to say anything. I was taken on a trip, once in a lifetime chance. You would have done the exact same thing. I have so much more awareness of what's going on behind the scenes than any of you ever could, because you don't see what's going on. 90% of what's in your closet is made in horrible conditions. So you have no right to say anything. Second, I've seen stuff with my own 2 eyes. If you think it's propaganda, that's cool. Again, you've never been to China and you've never seen what's going on. Third, 5th, 7th point, okay? There is so much xenophobia and racism with everything you guys are saying, and that's what I really learned in China. We are fed propaganda. We are fed a whole line, a whole narrative in the US about Chinese people and Chinese culture, and that China trip honestly changed my life. Even remove the SHEIN stuff, just being able to experience China with Chinese people and learning about that culture. So many things I could say, but I'm gonna let you guys go, pop your, talk your shit. Because like I said, I'm not the one. I know who I am. I know exactly what I'm doing. And to be a pioneer, you got to take a lot of sometimes. So it is what it is. I have love for everyone who knows me and sees me. For a majority of my life, I felt like I was never seen because of the person I am, being a fat person. And I feel like my community actually sees me.
And also the wild comments she made in her very obvious deliverables for SHEIN on this trip. Saying things like the reason people have issues with SHEIN is because of our internalized racism towards China and their work practices. That's a wild take. And then also calling herself an investigative journalist when that's something that people like literally have to go to school for and need actual credentials, which like, as far as I know, she does not have, to do, is also an absolutely wild take. And overall, like you've probably just saw it, a lot of her comments in her TikToks and her reels came off as very condescending and belittling towards her audience, when like the whole time she was really going to absolute battle for a company that did not give a shit about her, as evidenced later. I think Danny saying the comment along the lines of like, if you were offered a free trip to China, you would have taken it too, is 1, very condescending, and 2, shows just how out of touch she is/was with the size of her audience and platform. And I say the second one because I kind of said something along the same lines with my personal partnerships, and I have since come to realize like how wrong that sentiment actually was. It should also be mentioned now that since all of this happened, Danny has terminated her contract with SHEIN, and that was honestly very surprising, but also nice to see because she has been promoting them for a very, very long time. Danny was also not the only one who went on this trip, and definitely not the only one who made some absolutely wild comments in their deliverables. Another person also said about how nobody was sweating in this factory, and how she was told that they got nap time on their workday during their workday. And like, again, just like absolute like North Korea levels of propaganda. Like, all I could think about, the more and more that came out about this trip, was like those videos of people going to visit places in North Korea and people just like blankly having Google open on their computers. Like, that's all I could think about, because these influencers, the factory that they were shown was like their concepts factory. So basically it's like where they make like ideas for product, right? And it's all super automated, when like we have legitimate footage of like what an actual SHEIN factory is like from actual investigative journalists that have gone in and secretly filmed all of it. And it's also shown like what the working conditions is doing to the workers. So on the SHEIN side of things, like I said, I really don't think it's a coincidence that these creators were the ones that were picked. Like, are they great creators like before this? Sure. Like, yes, I followed Danny for a really long time. I didn't know who any of the other ones were, but I knew who Danny was. I really don't think it was a coincidence that these were the people who were chosen, because it's been shown and like proven throughout the course of like influencer brand trip history and just influencer brand deal history that like brands tend to favor thin white influencers, and that's with trips and deals in general, like I said. And I really think that SHEIN knew that and chose these influencers to make them feel like special. And knowing now what I know about SHEIN and all of that, I really do think that they took advantage of those influencers and probably knew that if there was backlash, they would go to bat for them, because that's what happened. And all of this goes back to what I said when I was talking about my past partnerships, where I mentioned that I feel dumb for falling for like Temu essentially using me and my platform and my relationship with my subscribers to promote their products when they probably already knew that like I would get backlash. Because SHEIN's silence during this whole trip and how badly it blew up on the internet, like everybody was talking about this, SHEIN's silence amidst all of that was so loud. They basically left these poor girls like out to dry and to play PR team for them without SHEIN having to lift a finger. And like, I think that's wrong. And so like, obviously agreeing to go on this trip and to promote the business practices that are so far from reality was definitely a lack of critical thinking and independent research on the influencers' parts, for sure. And that is 1000% like on them to take accountability for. But on top of that, I also just like kind of want to make a little message to like especially micro influencers like myself, and especially those that don't see themselves as influencers like myself. Certain brands like will use you and your ignorance. I've had it happen with brands like SHEIN and Temu, but I've also had like specifically one other sponsor in particular that I don't know if I'm legally allowed to talk about it or remove that ad read from the video it's in yet, so I'm not going to, or else I totally would. This is a huge learning process for all of us, and I think the biggest thing that I've had to come to terms with is that brands will use you, your ignorance, and your relationship with your audience due to its relatively like small size. And if it backfires, they will not be there to pick up the pieces. I think this whole thing was like a great example of influencer responsibility not being taken by the creators, but also how brands and corporations like this can take advantage of an influencer, sometimes without them like even noticing. And I'm not trying to like excuse away the fact that these people went on this trip and did what they did, but like I just think it was like a broader, wider conversation, and I have seen more people having this conversation, and I'm happy it's being had. But I just wanted to like share my 2 cents on this because I thought it was just something really interesting to watch unfold, especially in the context of like my platform where I've been like thinking and reflecting on like the brands that I want to work with and continue working with in the future. And yeah, so I just wanted to make this video because I wanted to talk about my past brand partnerships, and I also want to talk about this wild situation that blew up a couple months ago. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for hearing me out. Again, if like you cannot get past my past partnerships, that's totally fine. I get it. I just wanted to say like I'm sorry and I'm working to do better, and I pinky promise you I'm working to do better. But ultimately I am a floating head on the internet that you watch for entertainment, and so like do what you want with that. It is your decision who you want to follow and who you don't want to follow, and that's the cool thing about the internet. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, drink your water, and take your meds, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.